We'll have one last question that I just want to ask you, because you are in a unique position because you have this one foot back in this old Hollywood era with all of these great people you've talked about and that your mother knew personally and that you knew. And you bridged through the 60s with rock and roll, and you're still active and working today, and you've made your own films as a writer and director. How do you see the differences between the way films were made back then and what's happening today, and the challenge that we are faced with? Because I see great value in keeping these films in circulation and keeping this, the past present, and it's becoming more of an uphill battle all the time. Just what's your perspective on that? Because I imagine you must face this with your rock and roll stuff, with kids today saying, God forbid, who are the Rolling Stones? So I'm just curious what your perspective is.
That's 2.5 questions you asked, and as always,
pack them all in one.
No, and as always, they're very provocative. I think luckily we've gone past the stage of who are the Beatles and who's Paul McCartney, which was, there was a magazine article, a newspaper article in England some years ago, and there were some kids who said, I don't know who Paul McCartney is. They've reborn themselves, especially the Rolling Stones. Now they're going on tour, and Mick Jagger's 70 and they're selling out. Yeah, I think these movies are very important. Now, this was a curio tonight, this one, but if you take a picture, I think that John Huston did direct, a year later, Treasure of Sierra Madre, which has the same bitter conclusion that if you struggle for money, it may not be worth the struggle, because this ends with the lottery ticket being on fire from Peter Lorre, and the Treasure of Sierra Madre, all the money blows away. And so what you have in the movies of this period and in other great movies, you basically have conflict, drama, dilemma, someone in a pickle, how do you get out of it? Some people have qualities which are fine, some people have qualities which aren't so fine, and it's the conflict between the people who believe in one thing and the people who believe in the other. Now, sure, the problem today is basically CGI, and people are very keen to see things blown up and whatever. It's not my taste. I couldn't imagine how boring it is to make them, let alone watch them. But it's a tricky thing, because you don't want to sound like, I think it was called an old fogey, but I do believe that's something to do with the nature of human relationships and human beings is, for the most part, being missed now. Because if a movie costs $100 million, it's sort of like making a car. That you have to be sure all the wheels are on and the dashboard looks good, and that no one's going to get too worried, because the car really has to work if it costs $100 million. And so a lot of these movies are sort of eccentric, the noir movies. I mean, Peter Lorre is one of the most eccentric actors God ever made, but he's one of the greatest. But that was the beauty of these movies. They could have this kind of strange off-kilter thing, which is what makes them so memorable, and that's what I think is so great about the Noir Festival and the ones that you and Alan are involved with.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Well, and thank you. I think we're going to have to wrap up here this evening. But thank you all very, very much for coming. I'd like you to give a big round of applause to Michael Lindsay-Hogg and in absentia, his fabulous mother, Geraldine Fitzgerald.